our side some stories of fellow Democrats abroad, what these elections mean to us, why we need to vote, and the calls to action. Now I'd like to transition into our presidential candidates. How are we going to turn this into deciding who our candidate is? What, already? So first off, I would like to invite the Biden campaign to the stage. Michael, as you make your way up here, I would just add, Democrats Abroad has made a commitment to stay entirely neutral throughout the process. You will never receive any mails from us saying, vote for this person, don't vote for this person. So as part of today's program, we did invite every single campaign to join us, and the ones that are listed are the ones that responded and will be participating. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Candace, and thank you, Democrats Abroad, for inviting me. I have to say I'm very excited about being here because I grew up in Berlin, Germany. I was originally German, and then I immigrated to the US and became a US citizen almost 20 years ago. And I'm very excited to be back here in my birth country, but representing the great United States of America. To start, I want to say, especially since I'm the first speaker from any of the campaigns, I'd like to say that I think as Democrats, we can really be proud of the entire field of presidential candidates. Every single one of our candidates, including some of the ones that are no longer in the race, are good, honest, ethical human beings. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the guy occupying the White House, and you all know that. And I'm really worried about this election because it is, as all of you know, it is so difficult to beat an incumbent, who flies around on Air Force One with all the pomp and circumstance. And I'm really worried that, even if we're going into September or October, that the polls are going to, forecast that Democrats have a lead, and then in the end, in November, it's not going to work out. So, with all of that said, I think, as many of the other speakers have said, it is so important that all of us make a commitment, wherever we may fall exactly on the sort of ideological spectrum or the various candidates, that I certainly can tell you, I make the commitment, whoever the candidate is going to be, and I know I speak for former Vice President Biden, he said the same, we all have to unite and support the Democratic candidate in November. So just very briefly, how did I get here? I'm not on the campaign staff, I'm a volunteer. When I moved to the United States, I lived in a number of different places, Michigan, Maine, Florida, Virginia, and I ended up in Delaware, just literally a mile down the road from Vice President Biden's home when he was still in the Senate. And at the time he was he was the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate. It so happened that he had a great affinity for Germany, and specifically, guess for what city? From Munich. But that was a good guess. But he loved coming to the Munich Security Forum, that happens here every February. I don't know how many times he's attended, at least 10 times. And so what I am told, well, I know he told me Berlin is his second favorite. So just very, very briefly, I know we're running a little bit behind schedule. I just want to make a few points about the race and about Joe Biden. Number one, if November were all about turning out more voters in California, New York, or maybe Massachusetts, we would have little to worry about. But it's about winning Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida. You all know this, and I'm very worried about that. I think that later tonight you're going to hear from David Shore, and I just happened to chat with him a little bit earlier. I don't know where you are, David, if you're in the room, but we're having sort of having a little conversation sort of about the data analytics. I mean, down to the nitty-gritty of delegates by congressional district. I mean, it gets very tricky. And so really what I'm very concerned about November, and I think it is going to be a difficult race for whoever the candidate is. Now about Joe Biden, what I think is very important is that in addition to the domestic issues, which I'll get back to in a minute, that we have somebody who on the world stage can restore our relations with all of our allies, of course, including here in Germany, but also in Asia and in South America. I think we have, this current administration has alienated ourselves from everyone. It's something I never thought I would see. I have joked with my wife, and she worked for Joe Biden for 10 years. I have joked with her that Joe Biden is one of the only candidates who in several weekends of phone calls to world leaders could already sort of move the needle back in sort of a direction that people would say, you know, the United States can be respected again in terms of foreign policy. Whether that be immediately declaring rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, you know, whether that be, you know, any number of things with regards to commitment to NATO and so on. So I think that is really important. On the domestic side, there are a lot of really inspiring messages that we just heard from, you know, the LGBTQ caucus, from the Veterans Caucus, and from the Youth Caucus, and I mean and the DACA issue is something that's very, very important to Joe Biden. I think it's just really critical that we unite the Democratic Party and all the supporters to vote Democrat in November. So really, one of the last things that I want to say is that I have spent a great deal of time with Joe Biden. I was with him over the weekend in Iowa. I'll be back there again this next weekend in Iowa. And I know that he's somebody that I can trust. I think he's somebody that all of you can trust. And I think that he's our best chance to take back the White House, in my personal opinion. So with that, I'd like to turn the microphone over to the next speaker. Thank you.